Hey there, I'm Ken. This is Canadian Retro Things. Welcome. Today, I'm looking at one game on 3 computers. That game is Sea Dragon. What is Sea Dragon? It's a game where you control a submarine traveling through mine-infested water as well as other obstacles. You have to destroy or avoid everything because everything can kill you. It was originally released on the TRS-80 Model 1 and 3 in 1982 by Adventure International, written by Wayne Westmoreland and Terry Gilman. It was also ported to the Apple II, the Atari 8-bit, Commodore 64, the TRS-80 Colour Computer, and the IBM PC. I'm going to do things a little different here. This will be part 1, where I have chosen randomly 3 of the systems. In part 2, I'll look at the other 3 versions, and then the 2 winners will go head to head. Today, I'll be looking at the Atari 8-bit, the Apple II, and the TRS-80 Colour Computer. First, I will show some gameplay, and then I will break down each game and score it. To be fair, and because I'm currently at my cabin and don't have access to all my systems, I'm playing everything on some type of emulator. As a side note, there is, of course, controversy on the internet about which system Sea Dragon was originally released for. For instance, Moby Games lists it as originally an Apple II game. My Abandonware has it listed as only coming out for DOS computers, Apple II, Atari 8-bit, and C64, completely forgetting about the Tandy machines. My conclusion that it was originally released on the TRS-80 Model 1 and 3 is because of a few factors. The Model 1 and 3 programmers are also listed as the game designers. One of the authors, Wayne Westmoreland, has also said that he was inspired by the game Scramble for the design of Sea Dragon. This supports the fact that he was one of the original designers. And lastly, Wayne released the game into public domain in 1995, something only someone that owned the rights could do. Now, on to some gameplay. First, we're looking at the Atari 8-bit version. This was released in 1982 and programmed by Russ Wetmore. I'm playing this on my Atari 400 Mini. Now, we look at the Apple II version, released in 1982 and programmed by John Anderson. I'm playing this on the Apple Win emulator. Sea Dragon! Approaching maximum damage.
Approaching maximum damage. Sea Dragon!
Finally, we'll look at the Color Computer version, released in 1983 and programmed by Jim Hurd. I am playing this on the Virtual Color Computer Emulator, or VCC as it is known.
Welcome aboard, Captain. Welcome aboard, Captain.
And now it's time to break down these games. We're starting here with the Atari 8-bit. As you can see, we're talking first about the title screen. The title screen has big, chunky, colorful, inviting graphics. They definitely convey what the game is about. So I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. The sound, well, it's the repeated pinging from a radar. Now that is very fitting for a submarine game, but I really do think that they could have done more than just repeating the same sound over and over. I'll give that a 3. Moving on to the actual game, let's talk about the graphics. Again, they're big, chunky, colorful graphics, and in case you hadn't guessed yet, I do like my big, chunky, colorful graphics. The torpedoes are just a dash coming out of this ship. There wasn't a lot of thought put into those. And the explosions are a little bit lackluster. All in all, it's a nice looking game, and I'll give it, I think, an 8 out of 10. Now for the sound of this particular one, the missile fire is good. It's got a nice sound to it for an underwater game. The repeated pinging radar is really giving you the sense that you are in a submarine. The explosions sound good with a nice muted underwater sound to them, and all in all, I would say that the sound is about a 7 out of 10. The controls, well, that is where this version particularly badly falls down. The controls are extremely sluggish. Your ship is not very maneuverable. It's hard to get out of the way of things. It's just, yeah, it's almost like you're trying to move the ship through molasses. This one gets a 3 out of 10 on the control scheme. The difficulty, well, there is only one level of difficulty in the game, and the bad controls make it really hard to play, a lot harder than it should be. That really does detract from the enjoyment of playing the game, so I'm giving it a 4. It was just hard to want to come back and play this over and over. All right, now we take a look at the Apple computer again. Here is the title screen, and it has those big, chunky, colorful graphics that I like. Unfortunately, the big, chunky, colorful graphics include a snake. Now, I'm wondering if they were going for like a sea serpent there, maybe like a sea dragon, but it really just kind of looks like a regular garden variety snake, so unfortunately, that doesn't in any way convey what you're actually going to be playing here. So even though they are decent looking graphics, I'm giving it a 3 because it's not very clear about what you're playing. The sound, well, it's got a really nice, clear voice announcing Sea Dragon, but there's really nothing else. They could have done a little bit more. I mean, they spent a lot of time obviously getting that voice to be so good, but they could have done more, and I'll give that a 3. So 2 3 out of 5s there. Moving on to the game, we've got the graphics, which again are big, chunky, and colorful, but one drawback here is the cave walls. They're just a kind of a broken dotted line. Now, it's nice that they took time to draw decent looking torpedoes in this one, but the cave walls really look out of place with the other bright, colorful graphics there. So the graphics in this one, I'm going to drop them down to a 7. The sound, well, this is a very quiet game when you're playing. Now, that's not a bad thing. There were certain times when I was going through and I wasn't doing any firing and stuff, and all of a sudden I would hit something and die, and it's almost startling. The explosions, they do sound a bit like an afterthought when you have the really nice, clear speech that goes on through this game. So I'm giving it, I would say, an 8 for the really good speech and the atmospheric silence. It would have been higher if the explosions didn't sound like an afterthought. The controls on this one are not as sluggish as the Atari, but they're not great. The annoying thing about this one is that the scrolling speed of the screen is the same speed that you're moving. So if you speed up and then slow down, you always stay with the exact same piece of real estate just under you, which means if there's a mine coming up at you, you're dead. You can't get out of its way. Due to that scrolling speed problem and the fairly sluggish controls just combining together makes it just a hard game to control. So I'm just giving this one a 4 out of 10. Now moving on to the difficulty. Again, this is one of those ones that only has one difficulty level. Now it's nice that it's not extremely hard to get from one area to another when you start having different obstacles, but the scrolling problem make certain parts really annoying to try and get through. And it's those particular parts that actually detract incredibly from the enjoyment of the game. So, yeah, I have to give this, I think, a 6 on the difficulty. Now we're moving on to the CoCo. As you can see here, the title screen, very basic graphics. Initially, I was tempted to give it a 1 out of 5 for the graphics, but once the music starts, the guy starts playing his accordion and tapping his foot, so I'm bumping that up to a 2 out of 5. The sound, well, it does have a not very clear voice, but at least there was an attempt to do something there. And then it moves into actually fairly well done music. So it's going to get a 4 out of 5 for the music here. Now, the graphics, when you move into actually playing the game, not as overall bright and chunky and as biting as other versions. The torpedoes, once again, are just dashes in this one. The good thing on the graphics here are the exploding mines. They look great. Like, more like something imploding than exploding underwater. I give the graphics here a 6. The sound, well, that is definitely a mixed bag. There's definitely good tunes that are playing at the beginning of the game and when you die, but the sounds of your shots, the explosions, well, they just sound more like the speakers ticking. So, sound unfortunately gets a 5 here from me. And moving on to the controls, this is by far the loosest controls. You can maneuver very easily in this game. Actually, almost a little bit too easy, as it's pretty easy to accidentally run into a wall. You're faster than other objects, so you can avoid things. You're fast enough that you really do have to pay attention to what you're doing, because you can move across the screen pretty quickly. Controls here get an 8. They feel like a really good video game controls. The difficulty, now this was the only game where you got to choose a difficulty level. 0 was challenging, but 7 was downright crazy. The game was fast and challenging enough with good enough controls that when you start over, you weren't thinking to yourself, man, I gotta play through that part again. I really don't want to. Difficulty gets a 9. I wanted to keep playing this one over and over. If you own a Tandy Colour Computer and want to try playing Sea Dragon but have no way to load it on real hardware, then Retro Rewind can help you out. They sell the CoCo SDC, a product that plugs into your cartridge port and using an SD card can be used as a disk drive or hard drive. They also sell other things for your CoCo, as well as a wide variety of Commodore accessories. So visit Retro Rewind today at www.retrorewind.ca and use my discount code of CRT10 at checkout to save 10%. Now, it's time to recap the scores and crown a winner. First, we have the title screen for a total of 10 points. Atari got 7. Apple got 6, and CoCo got 6. Next, we have gameplay graphics. Atari scored 8, Apple got 7, and the CoCo scored 6. Moving on to the sound, Atari had a 7, Apple scored 8, and the CoCo only scored 5. For the controls, Atari scored 3, there's a 4 for the Apple, and an 8 for the CoCo. Finally, we have the difficulty, how much fun it was to play. Atari scored 4, Apple got a 6, and the CoCo got a 9. That means in third place with a score of 29 is the Atari 8-bit version. In second with a score of 31 is the Apple II. And the winner with a score of 34 is the Tandy Colour Computer. So, what do you think? Do you agree with what I said here? Have you played Sea Dragon? What are your thoughts on this game? Have you played one of these versions? I'd love to hear about it down in the comments. Other than that, I just have to say thanks for watching. Don't forget that a like, a subscribe, and a comment below are all things that help the channel out a lot and are greatly appreciated. But until the next time when I'm going to be looking at 3 more ports of this game, I will see you later.